Hello, Dan. Welcome. Great to meet you. Tell me about yourself and your company.
Oh, yeah, sure. So my name's Dan Garrett, and I'm one of the co-founders and the CEO of Farewell. And I started the company about 8 years ago out of the Royal College of Art, and we're on a mission to change the way the world deals with death, which is a bit of an unusual one. And I've yet to find a VC whose thesis is all around death tech. Um, but we started doing will writing, and very specifically in how we were writing wills, it was about encouraging people to put in personal messages and funeral wishes. So rather than it just being about sort of an exercise in legal compliance, it was, what do you really want to say to the people you leave behind? And we went from 1% of our customers doing that to 80% writing the most amazing things in their wills. Subsequently, we grew to be the biggest will writer in the UK quite quickly, which is where we still are. And then we've branched out into other services around death, firstly into probate, which is all the legal and financial stuff you do when someone dies. And then in 2019 into funerals, where we do something called direct cremation, which is where we pick up the body, carry out cremation, bring the ashes back to the family, and then they do their own thing. So they can have a celebration of life on the South Downs on a beach setting off fireworks. And that's been a huge part of our growth as a business over the last few years. We've also been through an interesting journey as a company where we grew a lot in the pandemic, understandably, because of the nature of our services. A lot of people were worried about dying, and the death rate was increased. So there were literally more funerals than probate. But we grew too fast. We raised too much money, and we've had to go through the difficult but ultimately really worthwhile process of going from a team of at its peak probably about 150 people to where we are today, which is around 70. So lots of stress and strain and struggle in the business, as there is in any business as you go through these sorts of cycles. And delighted to be on the podcast and to tell you some of my very half-baked ideas about wellness in the workplace.
Great. Well, it sounds fascinating, a fascinating journey, particularly as you say during COVID. So you've got 70 staff at the moment. What's the mix of the staff in terms of the roles, the kinds of jobs that they do?
So it's about 45% sales and operations. A lot of what we do is very customer, one-to-one customer interaction. We, built our own technology to make that as effective as possible and scalable as possible. But ultimately, when you help people to go through something like probate or a funeral, you need the human interaction side of it. So we have lots of highly trained, empathetic, warm people on the phone supporting families through these sorts of processes. That's about 45% of the business. Then we have probably another 25% that works in product. So either software engineering, product managers, designers, user researchers, people who work in data. And then we have a partnerships team. A lot of our wills business is distributed with partners, banks, mortgage brokers, life insurers, but mainly with charities. So we work with about 300 charities around the UK, and we've helped to raise almost £900 million in pledged income to charity over the last kind of 7 years, which is pretty cool. Then we have a few people who work in kind of growth and marketing, and then the rest of us who are in sort of leadership and management.
Great. And it sounds like a good mix. In terms of the sort of salary ranges, sort of where's sort of what's your medium point in terms of what you're paying people? Can you share that or not?
I probably wouldn't want to share that publicly, but our compensation philosophy is quite heavy on equity, and we actually don't aim to be anything other than 50th percentile when it comes to salary. So, we're not the sort of company that can afford to pay absolute top dollar. And we tend to find people heavily incentivize them on the option side of things, and then just pay middle of the market for equivalent tech companies on the salary side of things.
Great. So very much regard yourselves as a tech company.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah. Funded as a tech company, we operate as a tech company. Although we have lots of kind of human touch points throughout all of our different services, we operate at a scale and kind of number of customers per head in our team that's an order of magnitude different to equivalent competitors.
Great. Tell me about the working environment in terms of hybrid working, home versus office.
So we have guidance rather than rules at the moment, which I think is a big mistake, and I'm very happy to talk about that some more. So the rough guidance is for people to be in the office for a couple of days per week. I think the lack of clarity on that point isn't really useful for anyone, frankly. We went obviously fully remote during COVID, and we were also scaling our team very quickly when we did that. Previously, we'd been in the office every day. We went fully remote, as most people did. We had too many people to bring them back into the office, so we kind of staggered it. And we have a beautiful office in East London. And, you know, on a good day, probably we have, I'd say 35, maybe maximum 45 of our staff in the office out of around 70-ish. And I'm a big believer in flexibility, but I have experienced the energy, velocity, and progress that you can make when you're in the same place at the same time as other people. That to me is what makes work fun. And this stuff is personal. You know, there are no answers to these questions, and ultimately, unfortunately, not in a tyrannical way. It kind of comes down to how I want to work, frankly. So I'm a huge believer in being in the office with other people, and I think that's where the magic happens. The magic can happen elsewhere, but yeah, very happy to discuss it some more.
Yeah. So in terms of that, so you're obviously providing guidance, but you seem to be saying that you want to maybe set some more rules about actually getting people together more frequently. What do you think, in your opinion, would be the optimal sort of ratio, percentage-wise, office versus home or elsewhere?
I would say 3 or 4 days a week in the office. Yeah.
Got it. So the majority, 75% or more in the office.
I think so.
Got it. And in terms of just going towards the health and wellness part for your employees, what do you guys provide in terms of benefits or things around well-being for your staff?
Nothing crazy or out of the ordinary, and you know, we used to do a lot more, and I have grown to be really suspicious of companies that really go over the top, providing benefits and constantly talking about psychological safety and all of these sorts of things. These things matter, absolutely. They're essential to the proper functioning of a high-performing company, and I've seen so many companies at our kind of stage or scale, particularly over the last 5 years, go off a cliff of obsessively focusing on well-being in the workplace. I think it can actually be a kind of point of tyrannical downfall inside a company, where you tell people that an employer is responsible for your well-being. You're not responsible for someone's well-being. You're responsible for not having psychotic, abusive bullies inside the company, and you're responsible for building a diverse and inclusive environment that helps you to get the best out of every single person there. And as soon as you cross the Rubicon into somehow being responsible for the way that somebody feels, it's paternalistic, it's an impossible challenge for managers, and it's a downward spiral of managers being frayed at the edges and employees feeling that somehow the workplace isn't meeting their needs, whereas well-being starts with the individual. And I'm hugely proud of the culture that we've built, but we flew too close to the sun when it came to, you know, talking about well-being too much. And we're in a business to hit the goals of the business, and that comes absolutely first. And it's possible to have this sort of funny extra limb that grows off on the side that can take on a character of its own and that isn't really aligned with performance.
It sounds like that did happen when you had a lot of staff to some extent.
Yep. Yeah.
Right. And so how have you responded, and what do you provide today, just generally speaking?
The main thing is the people that we provide. Like, we hire people who are really kind, compassionate, intelligent, and ambitious. And that isn't necessarily the best environment for other people to work in if they're not high performing and ambitious, and we do a good job, ascertaining in an interview process if someone wants to work in that way. The thing you can do above all else is basically hire people who are genuinely kind and who are going to look out for each other. We also completely rebuilt our people department, and we have a couple of phenomenal leaders who lead our people team, who I think strike exactly the right balance between creating a culture of high performance and then having all of the not necessarily visible and communicated the entire time, all of the support structures for identifying if people are struggling or they need time off or something terrible is happening in their personal life, and helping them to navigate that. So yeah, I mean, I wonder if I had such a bad experience of everyone talking about it too much and it just being this constant source of discussion that wasn't helpful for anyone. It wasn't helpful for people who were struggling at work as well. It can be an amazing reprieve from the pains of your life, going to work and getting to be in a fun team and do work that you think is important. And if that conversation is ever present in your personal life and at work, it can be hell. So I think we strike a really good balance now because of the experience and the nuance that we apply to it in support when it's needed and performance for most of the time when it isn't.
Got it. And do you have specific programs that you run with the staff or for the staff, or that they can enroll into?
Yeah, we have manager training programs. And then we have a relationship with some counselors so that everyone gets free counseling if they think they need it, which is actually, the uptake there has been really good. And I think the most important bit is leaders in the business talking about when they're struggling. Not to say, oh, woe is me, my life is so difficult, but to say, hey, everyone is going to have a difficult time at work. And it's on you to say whether you want to talk about it or you don't want to talk about it. But often I've, reached out to our VP of people and she's been really supportive to me, or to our COO, or to one of my team. And I think, all of us in our executive team and all of us who are leading different functions in the business have a responsibility to say, if you're having a terrible time, chances are you're going to get through it better if you actually raise your hand and say, I'm struggling with something, and then we can come up with a plan for how to support you through whatever is going on. And I think we do that really well, actually, as an organization. So it isn't especially formalized. I'd say it's more cultural than procedural. But I'm proud of how we do it, and I'm sure we get it wrong sometimes.
Got it. And when you say the uptake, the counseling service, what does that cost you as a business?
I honestly don't know.
Okay.
Yeah. Not very. I mean, it's great bang for buck, frankly. If you have someone who leaves the business because they're having such a terrible time, or who doesn't, who can't come to work for one day because they're struggling and they don't have anyone to reach out to, it's I'm sure it would pay for itself many times over.
Got it. And what percentage do you think of the companies takes advantage of that service?
I would purely be guessing because I don't look at those numbers, but I think somewhere like 20% of the company has used it at one point or another.
Okay, so that's excellent. Sorry, bit of a chest there. No COVID. So in terms of the actual benefit, the overall benefits that you provide for staff, is there like a benefits package like that you support things like, you talk about counseling with like gym membership or other things that they get like a budget to spend on, or not?
We do very few benefits, and we're quite calculated about what they are, because I think there's this whole throw the kitchen sink at it mentality, and I just think it's random. Also, I spent a lot of time working in employee benefits to distribute our products, and people just don't use them, as a rule of thumb. Went to the CIPD conference on employee benefits, and you basically have a load of people who work in HR in big companies who've got these amazing benefits packages, and people only use free cinema tickets. So it's always a question of how engaging you make the interaction around these sorts of things. I think my two favorite ones that I think actually make a really big difference to people are, everyone has a Santander Cycles membership. so you can just jump on a bike and really easily get around town. I think that's great. Encourages people to cycle more, saves a load of money, genuinely. Like, I never really take public transport because I always just ride a bike, and there are these bikes next to the office as well. So that's a really good one. And then we also do an £1,000 budget per year for learning and development, and 3 days a year that you can apply towards learning and development. Yeah. So I think I would go a small number of benefits that are meaningful, where the major benefit above all else is the people that you get to work with. So to stack rank them, I'd say it's the culture that people get to work in the first place, then learning and development funded, which is the best investment you can ever make. And then I'm probably overstating the value of this, that not everyone uses it, but having a free bike membership is great.
Excellent. And in terms of the culture that you and the values in the business, can you talk a little bit more about that?
Oh yeah, sure. So we have 6 values, and when people talk about culture, I always think it's funny because you say to someone, what is culture? It's always a slightly amorphous description. It's the things we do, it's what we believe in. And we have a really specific definition of it, and it's kind of written in stone, which is it's our handbook for how we build things. And everyone in our company is building something, whether it's internal tools, our finance system, or the end product that our customers use. So ultimately, we sink or swim. The quality of the business depends on the quality of the products that we build, and our values are solely focused on how we build things as a team and individually. There's 6 of them. The first one is customers first. We help people in extraordinarily difficult times in their life. As we say in the funerals business, you can't uncremate somebody, so we better do it right. So there's a real focus on understanding our customers, their motivations for buying our products, the things that they struggle with as they're going through it. And that's intentionally our first value. The second one is to make it simple. Neurologically, when people are dealing with grief, they can't actually process information as well as you can if you're, not going through that. So the onus is on us to really simplify the customer experience and the language that we use. And also, we work in legal adjacent services and wills and probate that is prone to jargon. Make it simple is both on the customer side of things and also on the business side. So we have simple team structures. We have simple ways of tracking our goals. Businesses have this incredible ability to just generate complexity if left unpruned. And it's the number one thing that slows down progress. So simplicity is a way of doing business and a philosophy towards growing the company in and of itself. The third one is to move with urgency and focus. Focus is 80% of that. 80% of execution issues in business come from a lack of focus. So we've got really sensitive, particularly from when we were too big as a company, to having too many things on the plate. And I think we have an experienced team who are good at recognizing when we have the right solution in terms of the amount of work to do in a quarter and the targets to set. And then the urgency side of it comes from, well, why would you want to work in any other way? Like, life is too short to work slowly or not in a high octane way or not with a bunch of people who are capable of doing loads of stuff very fast. So it's fun, frankly, and it isn't fun if you don't have the focus. The fourth one is sweat the details. Hold the quality of our products to a really high standard. And that isn't because we've thought of some snazzy silver bullet idea. It's actually just the accretion and aggregation of struggling through each bit of design on a page, each word that we write. And we hire people who really have that kind of craftsmanship mentality, where they take real pride in each bit of work that we produce. And we're talking grammar, spelling, punctuation on Slack messages. Like, it isn't okay to just fire something out that isn't really high quality. Formatting in spreadsheets. So yeah, that ultimately, you can't have a really high quality product if you don't sweat the details on all of this stuff. The fifth one is act intrapreneurial, which basically means that we expect people, if they see a problem, to go and fix it, not to write a document and to ask for permission of how to do this. It's like, there's one way to run a lean, high performing company, which is where everyone is responsible for the output and everyone is responsible for fixing problems. And we have people who've started in the most junior customer service roles who go on to lead a product team or to lead an area of the business because they have that reflex of, I can see a problem and I'm going to fix it. And it's so much easier to run a company when that's baked into it. And the last one, because all this is all quite performance orientated and high octane, is be kind, have fun, and celebrate the wins, which is a big part of what we do as well, particularly in who we hire. So we have those 6 things, and crucially, promotions, pay rises are tied to how people do on the cultural side of things. There's no chance that you're going to end up being promoted into running a team if you're just like not contributing culturally to the business. So we put our money where our mouth is. Yeah.
And what's the age mix of the company, and also sex mix?
It's actually about 75% female, and the age mix, haven't looked at it for a while, but just looking around and guessing, I'd say the mean age is probably late 20s. And then, like lots of startups, on the diversity front, we do a pretty poor job of having over 50s in the company. I don't think we have anyone. Maybe we have a couple of people over 50. I wouldn't want to guess. Yeah.
Understood. And then in terms of, do you have any sort of private medical provision, given the state of the NHS?
We don't, and that's partly because of having a very young workforce. There are definitely people who ask for it in the company. So it's something we'd consider, but we don't have it today. Yeah.
And would you consider a more proactive approach, so where you take sort of an interest in the long-term resilience of your staff?
I think we do that, and I think that is done through management and coaching. Obviously, on the health side of things, I'm sure that there are things that people can do. But when it comes to resilience, my experience of it is that it's much more management and coaching than the actual physical healthcare side of things. Obviously, someone gets horribly ill, then it'd be useful to have the access to the best healthcare.
Yeah. But it's interesting because what we're finding is a lot of people are finding the NHS is really problematic. So when even common garden things are going wrong, it's taking a long time, and so people are ending up taking more sick leave. I don't know if you've seen anything like that.
Yeah, I mean, I've definitely read the statistics that sick leave has gone up in the last couple of years. It's kind of increased by 50%, I think. And it's interesting to think about where that comes from. I guess, we went through an interesting period at work where if you were ill, you were encouraged to stay home. Whereas kind of, before COVID, it was like, come in unless you're bleeding out of your eyeballs. So I guess people have a sort of slightly more modern attitude towards that. Yeah, I'd be interested to kind of see the evidence of return on investment for private healthcare, but I also think you're in danger of straying into sort of slightly ethical, political territory where, people right or wrongly have very strong feelings about the NHS, and I think it's okay for people to have the option to buy private healthcare if they want to, but it might feel like a step too far for us to do it as an organization.
Right. And are you seeing are you getting a hint of that increase in sick leave or not?
It isn't something that we regularly talk about. So it isn't a problem for us. Yeah. We definitely, people get sick, and it's it's tough for them and it's tough for the business when they are sick. I maybe we're kind of like, boiling the frog, but it hasn't been something where we're like, right, our P&L shows the difference, or it's causing us huge staffing problems or anything. Yeah.
Right, but you do track it. You do track the sick leave.
Yeah, we do.
Okay, got it. Okay, and for the last section, we've just got a few minutes. Is that one of the things we're exploring, whether your companies, part of our research is to see if companies are up for exploring a different model of health. So it's not private health insurance, but it's just a model that added health is, we're a group of docs basically who really care about people and keeping people well physically, of course, and mentally, because it's one thing, body and mind. And so one of the things we're very curious about is engaging with young companies like yourself on the proactive side, and offering a free sort of test, if you like, to see if your staff would engage and would enjoy this or not. Because the idea is essentially, I mean, it's a big idea. The idea is to actually create a whole new care layer for the NHS. And so the idea is it's not insurance, and it's much, much cheaper than private insurance. We're looking at £199 per year per employee, which includes all aspects of your life: what you eat, exercise, mental well-being, sleep, relationships, if you want a little bit of help and advice. Basically a wise sage guide by your side that's always there available to you, so to speak. And that's obviously asynchronous, so that you develop a relationship with us as a care service. And whether that's something you'd be interested to just try out as a business.
I mean, yeah, it sounds really interesting. I think I'd want to hear more about the actual practicalities of how it works.